Hey everybody, welcome to today's video on the channel, and in today's video I want to talk about a serious topic among the PvP community that I don't think is getting enough traction or being talked about enough within the community, especially by content creators, and that's going to be the barrier to entry for PvP. Now, I'm going to be dividing this video into a couple of, different sub points and offer my opinion as a very high ranked player at max level. Now, what kind of sparked me to make this video, guys, is the fact that I am working on a grandmaster. You'll probably see that in the background gameplay of what it's like to spellment farm right now. Extremely tedious. I've been here for about 2 hours and I'm only now about to get tier 2 of my storm spells, so pretty tedious, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the video. But that is the context of me making this video. I have made previous videos here on the channel talking about barrier to entry, briefly in other videos. I never really made like a whole video talking about the issue, but I do think this is a very, very important thing to talk about, guys, because at the end of the day, the PvP community is like maybe 2% of Wiz or something like that, according to the devs. So, that's not really great, and I think both as a player base and as developers, we can all do better. Now, every day I get asked stuff about PvP, how did you get Warlord on a storm? What gear do you use? What pets do you use? Where did you get your spellments? Can I hatch with your pet? Yada yada, stuff like that. Why did you do this? Why do you prefer that pet? There is so much stuff, and I think real quick before I even get into each category of the points, guys, I think one of the main issues with the PvP community is how very limiting and how gatekeeping the community is itself. Now, it is no secret that the PvP community is very toxic. Now, from what I have seen over the years and the last couple of updates, they're trying to crack down on toxicity, which I do appreciate, but there will always be toxicity in PvP. People will account share and continue to be toxic, but people will gatekeep strats and pets and stuff like that, builds, and it's just really cringe at the end of the day, man. Like, if you guys ever stop by one of my streams over on Twitch, or the rare one we have over on YouTube here every now and then, you guys know I will help lend my pets whenever I get the time to, but people don't do that. PvP players, they don't do that. They're really stingy. They just won't do it, and or they'll charge you actually to lend a pet, which is stupid. Now, I don't do that personally because I remember when I started the game 3 years ago, I met people like that and I just wanted to slap them in the face. Like, bro, how, like, it is so ridiculous how people will charge you and not lend your pet. Like, dude, you could just lend the pet. You literally get it for free and you get rewards for lending the pet. So I don't do that, and I think it's extremely cringe when other players don't want to do that and help the community, because at the end of the day, you are indirectly, or I guess directly, correlating to the problem of why we don't have more people in PvP, right? You should want to see the game do better, and you should want to see more people get into PvP and use these viable builds so we can have a better and more healthier queue system. So I think that's the first big point here, is the fact that PvP players are very toxic and they will gatekeep a lot of things from the lower rank players. Now, let's talk about some of these subpoints I have as to why PvP has such a high barrier to entry right now in 2023. The first one I want to bring up is going to be the current spellment system. Now, this is what you do for spellment farming. In the background gameplay, you just spend hours mindlessly farming these bosses until you get max tier of your spellments, and it is extremely grindy and not consumer friendly. And fun fact, when spellments came out, it actually used to be way worse than this, guys. If you guys recall, back when that update came out, I think last year or 2 years ago, the grind used to be a lot worse than this, and it is still bad. So what happens is a lot of players just are very turned off by the spellment farming, and they kind of need spellments to PvP, right? So they're kind of stuck in this place where, well, I don't want to spend a month farming spellments and then have the whole meta change. I don't really want to deal with that. So they either have to pay to play, or they just don't play, or they play and it's not fair because they don't have spellments. So I think spellments, I do like them as a concept, but I think in general they do need to be less grindy and, you know, less mind-numbing. I don't mind killing this boss, you know, literally 700 times, but at the same time, like, I want to get more direct drops. Like, if I'm on my storm right now, I don't care about these snowman spellments or these fire spellments. If I could filter the drops I get at least to speed up the process that way, that would be extremely helpful. And I think that's maybe one way they could look to make the spellment farming more consumer friendly and, you know, try to lessen that barrier to entry for PvP. Now, I will say the pack is actually pretty cheap and it is honestly a pretty good deal. You get, I think, like 90% of the spellments you get is for the school that you were on opening the pack. So if we have that, you know, in terms of a monetization system, I don't think it's unfair to ask for that in like a PvE system when majority of the players are literally doing PvE. I don't see why that system can't be copied and pasted for regular, you know, PvE players, you know? Next thing I want to talk about is pets. Now, as I said in the intro here, I am working on a grand, obviously brand new account. I don't have a lot of pets, as you can see on the screen here. Not a lot of good pets, at least. And I only have 4 couch potatoes on this account, and it's really, really tedious to try and make a pet because of how often they fail. And also, the stats on the pet need to be perfect for PvP. So making pets in general is extremely pricey with time, crowns, and obviously pet snack resources, right? So I think all of that combined just really makes the pet system really not that great. In my opinion, guys, you know, I'm gonna have to go out and farm a whole, you know, 60 something plot on my alt account and then make a 60 plot and then wait to, you know, harvest that, yada yada, just to even make a pet to even start PvPing from recruit and the ground up, you know? I think it's, you know, kind of dumb. And maybe if they overhaul the pet system, it won't be as bad, but I do think it's important to bring up, you know, how grindy it is with, like, you know, all the plants, trying to get the perfect numbers for a pet and the perfect talents, stuff like that. It is just a huge grind fest, and I've spent like, you know, $30 multiple times trying to make a specific pet. If you know, if you're a long-time viewer of this channel here, I made a storm pet that literally costed $33 when 5th Age first came around, and that's just really stupid. You know, I don't think any player should have to do that at the end of the day. So yeah, I'd like to see a change to the pet system or make it be a little bit less pay to win, the pet system. And I think that would help a lot with the barrier to entry as well. Next thing I want to talk about is going to be the gear grind. Now, I will be talking about Novus, Malistaire, all that stuff here. I mean, you could even bring up Waterworks, but Waterworks isn't bad as Novus or Malistaire, in my opinion, or even Darkmoor, you know? So the gear farming is really tedious. You know, Novus has been out for, I think, around 6 to 7 months now, at the time I'm recording this audio, and I think universally the community can agree that, you know, Novus might be a pretty cool world. You know, the story is not bad. It's a beautiful world, great music, stuff like that. But where KingsIsle really messed up on is making the gear accessible, and the player time investment to, like, drop ratio is just extremely not fair, and it's honestly disrespectful to the player base. I've made a lot of videos talking about, you know, how Novus farming just really isn't good for the game, and I hope that they can take that feedback and do better on the next world. But the gear grind is insane. You know, we have Aeon gear, which obviously takes a long time to get via Novus, and then we have raid gear as well, which, you know, don't even get me started with raids and the barrier to entry to that, you know. I'm not even going to talk about that in this video, but raids are a whole other demon. I've made videos about that. If you want to know a bit more about what raids are, you could check out those raid videos on my channel. Then you got like Eternal gear for some schools and stuff like that, Nightmare gear, and now Skyfarer gear. And then it can be really overwhelming as a player to get all that and then know what the best, you know, mix and match stuff is for the meta. And I feel like that's, you know, what YouTube is for, basically, is to find, like, you know, what is the best, like, combos, stuff like that, right? But my point here is more towards the actually obtaining the gear isn't great, you know? Like, obtaining the gear from the new pack, actually, the Skyfarer pack. I don't think there's a single free-to-play way to get that. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's literally not. And that is just a big red flag, considering the ring in the deck is literally meta for some schools, and I think even like the hat is meta for some schools as well, you know? Just little stuff like that, and the Nightmare Gauntlet as well, being, again, a horrible time investment for the player to the amount of drops you get per run. It's just really, really crappy to be a consumer in this current day and age of Wizard101. So I'm just really hoping that they can fix these issues going into the new world and the new raid with the barriers of entry, make the gear grind a bit more accessible for both hardcore players and casual players, and don't make it so grindy, man. You know, you want to have a good time playing the game. I don't want to spend 2 months farming every day just to get all my gear for a couple of wizards. I think that's a little bit crazy. And what's even more crazy is, like I said, Novus has been out for a couple months now, y'all. And I know people that are still farming Novus for pixels and stuff like that. So it's kind of wild to think about. It's kind of wild to think about it that way. Next thing I want to talk about is going to be the Roshambo wheel. Now, KingsSaw did bring up the Roshambo wheel, I think maybe about a year and a half ago now. Could be wrong. Don't correct me, or actually do correct me if I am wrong. Because, I mean, you know, being wrong isn't that bad. But anyways, back on topic here. This Roshambo wheel, a lot of players, honestly, I would say a majority of the player base doesn't know what the hell this thing is. And that might be a, you know, a hot take on the channel here. But, you know, I've made videos talking about it a lot, and I have a very thorough understanding of how it works, and a lot of other high-ranked PvP players get it as well. But I feel like majority of people don't know what the hell this thing is, and I'll have an image up on screen for you guys right now, in case you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about or what a Roshambo is. But this thing is extremely confusing for a player to understand, and you know, I think if there's like an updated guide from Diego, like, you know, back in the day, Diego would tell you like, oh, you know, critical, stun block, set shield. He would give you a tutorial for that stuff, okay? I think we should get an updated tutorial with Roshambo and kind of explain like, hey, like, you might not want to blade against a death, or you might not want to overtime against a storm, you know, and this is why. Then put the Roshambo wheel up on screen. I think that would really help players in terms of PvP and advanced combat. I think a system like that is honestly pretty far overdue right now, in my opinion. I think that would help, you know, get the Roshambo system out to more players and help them understand it better, you know? Now, I do know a lot of players don't like Roshambo because, for example, you know, Storm isn't really glass cannon anymore with the new Roshambo system. Fire and Myth aren't technically damage schools anymore, even though they were marketed as damage schools at the start of the game, stuff like that. You know, Roshambo has been pretty controversial in ways, and I honestly might make another video talking about that. Let me know if you want to see that in the comments below or not. But the Roshambo, it's a big controversy, and I think players just don't understand it, or they have very little understanding. And I think really fleshing that out throughout the game would really help out a lot in terms of barrier to entry, because some people see all that stuff and they get scared, like they're timid or something, and they don't want to go in. So I think stuff like this and systems and tutorials would really help out, and maybe KingsSaw could work with, you know, like us creators for this tutorial as well. Like, we could give our, you know, insight and tips like that they could put in with a Diego quest. That would be pretty cool to see. And just on a last note here, guys, I think if KingsSaw can really crack down on this barrier to entry issue with PvP, I think, you know, this indirectly would make sniping, like stream sniping and queue sniping, a lot less of a problem. Because at the end of the day, man, if we have more players in queue, it's not going to be as easy to queue snipe high-ranked or low-ranked players, you know? Now, high-ranked players and streamers get targeted the most by snipes, but that's not just us. I've seen plenty of low-ranked players, you know, fall victim to people queue sniping, you know? For example, I have a lot of Storm friends on my Storms list, obviously, rightfully so, right? And I will be on my Storm queuing, and they'll try to get me, but they'll get Timmy21 who wants to be like Liam, but guess what? He gets some loser that is set with resist trying to get Liam, you know? So I really think if we can give, you know, players an easier way to get into PvP with the barrier to entry we talked about in this video, and, you know, maybe get some more incentives in there to get players in, I think that would indirectly help with the sniping issue, and I think that would really help the health of the game in general for PvP, and maybe we can see it grow from like a fraction of the player base to maybe like a big chunk, you know? That'd be pretty cool in my opinion. If you guys found this video useful at all, a like, rating, and a sub is always appreciated. I do post every day, if not every other day, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you for being here, and as always, take care now.